This is the City of God podcast, where Christ meets culture. And welcome to the City of God podcast, where we are weekly talking about today's biggest cultural issues, all through the lens of God's infallible word. My name is Rob Pacienza, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Daniella Bloom, who is today's free-thinking psychotherapist. She is a speaker and an author. And Daniella, welcome to the City of God.
Oh my gosh, thrilled to be here.
So tell our audience a little bit about your story. You are formerly a self-proclaimed liberal.
That's right.
You've come out of the darkness.
I'm doing my atonement now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell our audience a little bit about your journey.
So I'm from Los Angeles. And
I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, someone still has to be there, but I was a passionate Democrat, and I became awake. I became awake because I'm a Jew. I'm a proud Jewish American.
Not woke, but awake.
Yes. There's two parties today, by the way, the woke and the awake. And you know who you're standing with, you know? And I was always a pro-Israel advocate. When I started to see the tactics that the pro-Palestine camp would be using to vilify Israel, to make Israel the oppressor, and I started to see that happening on American soil to our sitting president, Donald Trump, vilifying half the country as racist domestic terrorists. When I started to go to the Trump rallies in Los Angeles, I saw a very different narrative, a very different reality than the narrative that was portrayed in the media. I saw Black people for Trump, Latinos for Trump, LGBT for Trump, and this group was united in love. We love our country. We back the blue. We love the land of opportunities. We're not empowered victims. We love our president. And I walked away, and I'm doing all of my atonement now. Everyone should be a free thinker. You be a free thinker. You be a free thinker. Everyone be a free thinker.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now you've been given the I think it's a badge of honor.
Yes.
Dubbed as the ambassador for Jexit.
It's I'm doing it anyway. Yes.
They're doing it anyway.
Yes.
Jews who are exiting
the Democratic
Party. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that come about? And
yes.
Why is this so important to you?
You know, the number one question I get by my Christian friends is, why aren't all Jews Republican? Like, Trump has been the best president for Israel, and a lot of the Republican base are Christian, who are more pro-Israel than a lot of liberal Jews. What's going on? And it's, Jews typically stand with the underdog because we're the underdog. I mean, if anyone knows about oppression and genocide, I think we would be it.
Yep.
But we don't wallow in that. We're forward thinkers. Everywhere we go, we want to improve upon. The problem with a lot of the Jews, liberal Jews in America, is they've lost their way. They're very secular. They're not connected to God. There's, the 10 Commandments. They've kind of defined their own religion. Climate change, pronouns, systemic racism is now their priority over Israel, over God. And that's what makes it so ironic and sad. And that's why being a part of Jexit, it's not just bringing a home for the awake Jews who are finally coming back to some common sense, but it's aligning with our allies today, especially in the in the Christian community, because your vote counts. We're only 2% of the country. Your vote, your ability to speak up for Israel, speak up for the Judeo-Christian values that this country was founded on, that's who we turn to today. My birthday was yesterday. The best birthday gift ever was to be around 4,500 pro-America, pro-Israel Christians.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that we're talking about this, because I've always been fascinated by the draw of Jewish people to the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
A party that I feel like has turned their back on Israel, has turned their back on Jewish Americans. And so it's so encouraging to hear that you're witnessing this real exit. And
especially
back
after October 7th. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so let's talk about October 7th. I love your perspective on this.
Sure.
3, at the time, sitting presidents of higher education in America, one of them being Claudine Gay of Harvard, sitting before Congress, and not one of them was able to condemn the genocide, the blatant genocide on the Israeli people.
Yeah, I was
Give
told
me your
it was
thoughts on that.
contextual, yes.
Yeah, right.
I mean, when genocide needs to be contextualized, I think that was a wake-up call.
Yeah.
I think many liberal Jews who, without question, stood with their friends in the BLM protests / riots, when they stood with their friends for LGBT and all these other causes in the name of diversity and inclusion, no one was standing with them after October 7th. They felt the silence. No one was reaching out. No one was saying, let me put a blue box on my Instagram. And I think that was a real slap in the face to much of America. If this is what our coveted institutions, Harvard, Disney, if they have lost their way so far where they have to put into the right context what genocide means, when Jewish students do not feel safe to even go to their classes, when that is justified, all of a sudden they're all about free speech when it comes to that?
Yep.
Come on. But guess what? The silent majority is powerful. The college admissions and applications to Harvard has gone down 20%. We see what's happening with Disney. When you alienate the parents, they're not going to be sending their kids to your institutions.
Absolutely. And parental rights is under attack big time in this nation. Let's talk about that in a minute, but let's stay on the Israel. Our audience are all individuals who love America. They love the freedoms of this country. Why is it so important for any citizen in America who loves liberty, loves principled freedom, to stand behind Israel right now?
It's very tough to see our own base divided. All of a sudden, people I used to love, like Tucker and Candace Owens, are lumping Israel in with Ukraine, and you cannot put them in the same boat.
Yep.
Ukraine is a blank check with billions of dollars given with no checks and balances. We have no idea where this money is going. And there's no ROI. Whereas Israel, who has always been a strong ally, gets a fraction of this aid. There's tons of ROI. We share technologies like the Iron Dome. It's, the aid that's given to Israel is turned right back and invested into U.S. companies. Because you know what? Peace through strength, war through weakness. Trump knew this. When you invest in a strong military and you put sanctions on our enemies, we have peace. We had 4 years of peace.
Yeah.
So it's very painful to see that this is a divided issue amongst our base, because our country was founded on Judeo-Christian values.
Absolutely.
Israel and America stand for these Judeo-Christian values. Israel is a tiny, tiny country, the size of Delaware. It's the only Jewish country in the world, and it still welcomes all religions. You can be gay, you have women's rights, you can be an Arab Israel hater and still sit on the Israeli government. That's how democratic the Knesset is. Yet, apparently, I was told that Israel is the white oppressor who's the colonialist.
It's amazing.
It's just upside down.
Yep. It's the lone safe haven for freedom and liberty in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And that's why not many people know this. And I'm so glad you brought up our Judeo-Christian roots as a nation.
Yeah.
Even George Washington and many of the other founders actually longed for the state of Israel to be reestablished in the Middle East. Our founding fathers understood the importance of Israel being reestablished. They understood that if democracy is going to succeed here in America, it must succeed everywhere. That freedom must flourish everywhere. And so this is something that is not a part of a recent conversation, but this is a conversation that's been happening in this nation for 250 years. And I echo your sentiments. When I see the conservative faith community either turn their back on Israel or just respond with apathy, I just go, don't you understand that the freedoms you love here in America, that the goal is that these freedoms are spread far and wide. That is the whole understanding of America being that city on a hill.
And also, let's not be naive. The Muslim Brotherhood, not all Muslims are like this, of course not, but the Muslim Brotherhood makes it very clear. Israel is number one, and then America and the West and Christians are number two. It is America first by supporting Israel.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why I wrote my book, because I feel our country has become, not you and I in the Awake community, but our country has become so spoiled on freedom. They don't know how good they have it. Their parents maybe haven't come from communist countries. And we are in just such a vulnerable state where our country is falling apart, not from threats from the outside, but from within. Because when you see the people of Iran protecting the America and Israeli flags, and you have this generation stepping on them, what is going on?
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln actually said that, what you just said, that if we are going to destroy America or see America destroyed, it will be destroyed from within. He was talking obviously about the Civil War and the infighting, but we're seeing it again, fighting against our own principles and our own virtues and values as a society.
Yes.
And so, okay, so you just mentioned your book,
Yeah.
The World Where I Belong.
Yeah.
This is a fable for all ages.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this book.
Absolutely.
And why you wrote it.
So it's right now #1 on Amazon for children's book, Judeo-Christian values. As a psychotherapist and a mom, I wanted to write a back to basics fable for children and adults to really, as a wake-up call about what true freedom is, what the value of free choice is, personal accountability and grace, which are the basic things lacking. This is not a political book. This is a common sense book founded in the core Judeo values of personal responsibility and grace. And this boy hates his world. He thinks there's a way better world out there for him somewhere. And he goes on a mystical, metaphorical journey between two polar opposite worlds, the land of me and the land of we. And he finds out why both those worlds are not ideal. And then he ends up in exactly where he needs to be. But this time now he's awake. And it's a short 40-page story, but it also includes discussion questions, activities, and afterward, because if we don't integrate the value of forward thinking, personal responsibility, and grace, it doesn't matter. And that's true freedom, that at any given moment, we have our free choice to redirect our life to where we see it to want to go.
The World Where I Belong, a fable for all ages by Daniella Bloom. Let's continue to see the numbers spike on that book on Amazon and get a copy today.
Yep.
So before we started recording, we were jokingly talking about the difference between being woke and being awakened.
Yeah.
But that's something we should really actually take to heart. In your mind, what is the difference and why is it so critical?
Absolutely. So as a psychotherapist, I see the parallels between why our relationships are falling apart on a personal level to how our nation is falling apart. It's all your fault. If only you would change. It's the other. So the difference between woke and awake, if you are systematically conditioned to believe that it's the other's fault, it's the MAGA racist domestic terrorists, it's their fault, if only they would change, you're woke. If you are awake and you understand that we're all being screwed, we're all being censored, we're all being fed a narrative, our open borders affect all Americans. The fentanyl crisis affects all Americans. The crime, the division affects all of us. Then you're awake.
Yeah, that's good. Now, you live in LA.
I do.
A place that is not necessarily known for common sense and personal accountability.
No.
So how are you surviving and what are you seeing? Because I think, some people, they might listen to a message like this and go, you guys are being a little radical, a little extreme, alarmist. But anybody I talk to from California goes, no, it's all real.
No,
so what are you
it's probably
seeing, the
worse.
lack of common sense and the lack of personal accountability?
Again, California is not just a blue state. It's a blue and deep blue state. I mean, Elon Musk said this. He said there's no checks and balances. There's a reason why, for the first time ever,
it's a one-party state.
It's a one-party state. Hundreds of thousands of Californians, including Democrats, have fled to mostly red states. So that should tell you something.
Yep.
Why I'm still in California, first of all, we can't all leave. Someone has to be on the front lines.
Yep.
And California, unfortunately, is the domino effect to many tyranny, fascist assembly bills that are trying to be passed. I mean, if people really understood what is passed in California recently, separating parents from children, empowering 12-year-olds to get gender transitioning surgery without parental consent, protecting the schools from informing parents of what's going on with their children, it's horrendous. You do not co-parent with the government.
Yep.
This is basic common sense. You cannot give children who are not old enough to vote, not old enough to smoke or drink, but the ability to do life-altering damage to their bodies because they're pre-hormonal.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah.
And this is just one of the many tsunamis that we are fighting in California. I mean, I was working hard with PERC, a wonderful organization, along with Children's Health Defense. They were trying to get children to be vaccinated with the COVID vaccine 5 and up, or they couldn't go to their tax-paying funded public schools.
I mean,
This is
government overreach
outrageous.
is astounding.
Astounding. And it did, COVID was not a threat to children. If the children they had their own immunities, they weren't going to lose their lives. It wasn't polio.
Right.
Every day there's something to fight in California. But if you take your children out of public school, if you take all of the free thinkers out of California, it just becomes more radicalized. It's so systemically brainwashed that Governor Gavin Newsom, who's ran the state to the ground, we have the highest crime, the highest homeless. The people who continue to get punished are the homeowners, are the business owners. And this guy they want to run for president?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because he says what people want to hear.
Yep.
He talks about reparations. He talks about climate change. He talks about abortion.
Yep.
That's, I guess, all they need, folks.
Well, the cultural elites that are controlling our universities, the cultural elites that are controlling
Qatar funded, by the way.
mainstream media.
Yeah.
They want a secular society, and somebody like Governor Newsom's going to get them there.
George Soros, who is funds all the progressive DAs, Gascon and all of them. He hates the human race. Like, he has mental health issues, and the way he's dealing with them is ensuring that there's continual destruction and chaos within our country.
So let's talk about parental rights. It's one of the issues you brought up that you're facing as a citizen of California, Awake Mama Bear. We have a Secretary of Education that is on record saying that teachers know better than parents, which is amazing. I had to keep looking it up to make sure that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
And that's what he said, that teachers know more than parents. So what does the conservative faith community need to do to wake up to what's going on? And what can they practically do to redirect education in America and parents in America that maybe are apathetic or just complacent?
Well, they are doing that. They started to go to the school board meetings, and guess what? They were labeled domestic terrorists by the FBI.
Yeah.
It is very hard to be a parent today, even if you do everything right. Your kids are influenced by social media. Groupthink. The need to belong is far more powerful than standing out. And it's very hard, especially if you have a child who's introverted. If they're around a bunch of kids who are in groupthink, who have pronouns, and who are led to believe that the Christians are the problem, they're not going to want to stand out because they don't want attention drawn to them. So I bring it back to the home. Keep encouraging critical thinking, common sense thinking with your kids. I do it with mine. I say, you know what? Tell me about that perspective. And I said, I want you to have all the information. Let's flip it and see what the other perspective could be, so you have all the information. Because I know this with my own kids, if I say this is what I believe, they're going to be defiant and just say the opposite. So you have to play the game. You have to say, I want you to be informed. I want you to have all the information. And then what is your common sense telling you? So you just want to continue to encourage nuance, critical thinking, asking questions, wanting the whole picture, wanting to put things in the full context, because clearly we're at a disadvantage today in our public school systems.
That's super helpful. Daniella, our audience wants to find out more about you, your work, where you're speaking, what you're writing, your projects. Where would they go?
Absolutely. Well, find me on any social media of your choice. I am on TikTok. Someone has to do it. If you like masochism, you can go there. But I use my platform to talk about what's going on underneath the headlines, especially to the generation like myself who became passionate We the People patriots, free thinkers later in life. We want lifestyle content without a woke agenda. So please follow me for more, because I have so many more conversations that will be valued to you and your families.
Daniella Bloom, not the woke mama bear, but the awake mama bear. Big difference.
Yes.
America's free thinking psychotherapist. Thank you so much for being on City of God today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being an ally.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the City of God. If you were encouraged or inspired by today's episode with Daniella Bloom, please pass this along to a family member, friend that wants to tackle today's biggest cultural issues all through the lens of God's infallible word. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the City of God. The City of God podcast is produced by Coral Ridge Ministries and made in partnership with the Institute for Faith and Culture. Visit us at cityofgodpodcast.com to access all of our previous episodes. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or anywhere you get podcasts. A full video version of this podcast is available on YouTube. This is the City of God podcast, where Christ meets culture.